Always bumping it.
All right, well, welcome to episode 1 of the Melonheads podcast. Mm-hmm. I'm your host, James. I'm here with my co-host, Thomas.
Thomas?
Yeah, this is my brother. You probably know him.
Yeah.
And my other co-host, David.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
So the format for these podcasts, we're probably just going to start with conversation. What we usually do, like if we were just hanging out. My idea was I wanted to hang out with these guys more, right? I don't get to talk to them a lot except briefly over text and the rare times that we meet up. But I wanted to talk to them more often. So the first 20 minutes of each podcast will probably be just something like us hanging out and having a normal conversation. The middle 20 minutes, since we're going for hour-long episodes, will probably be, or not probably, always be like a media analysis section. So every episode we're going to choose a new work of art. This time it's a movie. It might be songs, paintings, other film shows and whatnot, and just kind of analyze it, just give you our thoughts about it. And then the last 20 minutes of each hour will be we're going to answer your questions. So if you have a question that you want us to answer, you can leave it in the form of a 5-star review and we'll just give you our thoughts on it.
Yes, sir.
Is there something you guys want to start with?
I don't know. I'd say we could start with one of your questions.
I didn't really have questions in.
Okay, well, I have a story.
Yeah.
We'll start with a little story.
Okay, well.
Okay, so this kind of spawned, we were driving here. James is driving, kind of like a maniac. But we're at one of the country roads. There was a squirrel on the road. And he drove over the squirrel. He did not.
It was already dead. Okay, it was already dead. I saw a corpse on the road.
It was already dead.
I didn't feel the need to swerve around it.
Why would you still run over it?
I felt okay. I was driving. It was a thin road, so there's not much space to swerve.
It was a little disrespectful.
The dead squirrel.
I said as much, but then we were talking about like squirrels and death, and I was kind of wondering. And James asked this. He was wondering, do animals go to heaven?
Is that an actual question?
That was an actual question, and I want to see what you think about that, because you kind of started to answer the question, but you seemed unsure. So I want to hear, do animals go to heaven?
So the way we got to that question was Thomas was annoyed that I didn't have any respect for the squirrel, right? And he said that I should have some respect for the squirrel, and I did the sign of the cross and then wished that it would go to heaven, right? And then I was like, well, do animals go to heaven? And at the time, I didn't think it was that deep.
It's not that deep.
It's not that deep, right?
But I'm asking you this question: do animals go to heaven?
Off the top of my head, I can't remember any scripture references that talk about animals going to heaven. I would say no.
I think it rains hidden.
Because, and I think I mentioned this a little bit in the car, but I was thinking of like the one thing, or one of the things that distinguishes us humans from animals is that we have like a soul. I'm pretty sure. I think that's true, and our soul is what is taken to heaven, right? Before we get our new body in the new earth, right? But in heaven, we are, I think, just a soul. And so if animals don't have that sort of soul, it wouldn't make sense that they be brought to heaven. Now, that's not to say that when God comes and creates a new earth, that he won't make new animals, or like just not new ones, not like New Game Plus, but like same animals.
There might be.
That'd be sick. He'd
like be sick.
He like brings back like the dodo bird.
Obi takes out mosquitoes, so he's making mosquitoes in the new earth.
Actually, and that's interesting. We were on a hike once, some national park, Great Basin probably, and we were, I think someone, I don't remember who, but like made the comment that they think that mosquitoes are a product of the fall.
Yeah,
it makes sense.
It wouldn't make sense that blood-sucking creatures like were there before sin entered the world.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I would say there's some sin in there.
Life. They don't really propagate life that much. Although there might be birds that really survive off critters like that. I don't know.
Maybe it was like a post-fall thing for them to bite us and
Mm.
give us bumps. Honestly, I wouldn't mind if they took my blood and they didn't leave a bump. I'd be
True.
cool with that.
True.
Like
I wouldn't mind that. Yeah.
Like if I didn't feel itchy afterwards, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Have it. I
Because
don't
wait,
know.
where does the itchiness come from? Like, where's the actual bump? I feel like I saw a video
I feel like
of
they
this.
have germs on their thing, and it's like an infection. I think.
Oh no, you know what I was thinking of? I was thinking of so with ants, the reason that like if they bite us and we get a bump is because they like physically.
Oh, I saw a video.
They
of
like
that.
they
How
bite
did
your
you guys
skin and like
supposed
they
to-
pull up like a little bit of the
And then
skin.
they start digging.
Yeah, and they like inject like the stuff. And
That's
then-
kind of nasty.
Yeah, sorry, like it's just irritated and it's also just like. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure mosquitoes pull up your flesh,
I
but
don't think that. I think they just.
I think it might be
It's
just
like
germs,
yeah,
infections, just a
yeah.
little one.
Boy's dirty.
So yeah,
Them boys are dirty.
there's not like Mikey the squirrel is not going to
True.
the new heaven.
Fido
in
the
new
dog
heaven.
might not
No,
also go
yeah.
to heaven.
But
Oh yeah.
there will be probably squirrels and dogs, just not
I mean, yeah,
reincarnated souls of deceased animals.
Mhm.
yeah.
Ooh.
I agree.
Here's a question that we can spend as little or as like we'll see. I'm gonna throw this out here. Do you think that like angels can take the form of animals?
Ooh.
Is that like Miracle on 34th Street where the angel? You guys ever seen that movie?
Nope.
Nope.
Never heard of that in my life.
It's a Christmas movie. It's in black and white. It doesn't matter. The angel doesn't
It's like
take the
great
form
reference.
of it.
Good stuff.
You're saying your
For all of our
question
90-year-old
is
viewers
do
out there.
your
This
question
is for you.
Yeah.
can angels become animals?
Can they?
Like,
can
take the
they-
form.
Would they like
Yeah,
talk
yeah.
to us?
Well, I'm not sure. Maybe it's a less of a question of would they, or do you think have they?
Well, okay. Well, think of Balaam the donkey. Didn't he talk to his master?
Balaam was a guy. His donkey was a different thing.
Okay, the donkey talked to
It's
Balaam.
like Frankenstein's
Yeah,
It is just like that. Yeah.
Balaam the donkey. No, but the donkey talked. Was that the donkey's brain producing language that is not possible? Like, or maybe God made it possible.
Oh,
It's
shoot.
God.
Or was that like an angel?
I would say
Wait, when was that?
I don't know,
Old Testament, minor prophet. Some
No, it's an Old Testament. I just read that. It was
Oh.
like it was during the conquest of Canaan,
so like
or like right
Chronicles?
before the conquest of. No, the conquest of Canaan.
When is that?
Numbers
Pre
22.
John.
Oh, okay. So at the end of Exodus or the start of the
Something
next
like
one?
that. It was right before. It was
It's Numbers 22. I'm gonna pull this up because
Yeah.
it's actually kind of interesting.
No,
I
the
would-
donkey talks, and so it's like a kind of a Scooby Doo moment, because this dude is trying to run
Raggy?
away. This dude is trying to run away. Oh, there's an angel in the story too. This dude is running away on the donkey, and he goes off the path, and in his way is an angel, and so he does a Yui, and then goes down a different path. And
Yeah.
then the angel is there too. So
Whoa.
and it happens like 3 or 4 times. So he's like, I just imagine him kind of running around different paths and like meeting the angel.
It's like the scene of Scooby Doo when they're running
Right,
back
they're
and
running
forth,
back
and they
and
like come
forth.
out of like different entrances. And
Right,
like,
it's
I love-
classic.
it's a classic Scooby Doo scene.
But I'm wondering, like, is the donkey the one talking, or maybe it was like inhabited by a spirit of God,
Yeah,
and it wasn't the donkey itself? Because there's a bit of a difference there in the miracle.
Okay.
Like-
Okay. God came to Balaam. Okay, this is Numbers. This is
It's
Numbers
kind of a long
22:20.
story, but
Yeah, I'm only. Oh wait, no. It's Numbers 20. Numbers 22:22. Yeah, Balaam's donkey and the angel. Okay. But God's anger was kindled because he went, and the angel of the Lord took his stand in the way as his adversary. Now he was riding on the donkey, and his 2 servants were with him. And the donkey saw the angel of the Lord standing in the road with a drawn sword in hand. And the donkey turned aside out of the road and went into the field. And Balaam struck the donkey to turn her into the road. Then the angel of the Lord stood in a narrow path between the vineyards, with a wall on either side. And when the donkey saw the angel of the Lord, she pushed against the wall and pressed Balaam's foot against the wall. So he struck her again. Then the angel of the Lord went ahead and stood in a narrow place where there was no way to turn, either to the right or to the left. When the donkey saw the angel of the Lord, she lay down under Balaam, and Balaam's anger was kindled, and he struck the donkey with his staff. Then the Lord opened the mouth of the donkey, and she said to Balaam, "What have I done to you that you have struck me these 3 times?" And Balaam said to the donkey, "Because you have made a fool of me. I wish I had a sword in my hand, for then I would kill you." And the donkey said to Balaam, "Am I not your donkey on which you have ridden all your life all to this day? Is it my habit to treat you this way?" And he said, "No." And then the Lord opened the eyes of Balaam, and he saw the angel of the Lord standing in the way with his drawn sword in hand, and he bowed down. Okay, there's...
yeah. So the question is is an animal's brain capable of those kinds of thoughts? Because sometimes in fiction we pretend like it, but there's no way. Like our dogs and our cats are having those thoughts. Like I've lived with you my whole life. Why are you treating me like this?
Yeah.
Like I feel like that's like a kind of like a
Yeah.
personification
I feel like
of an animal that's not really accurate to their brain. So that's why I feel like the spirit of God probably.
I think it's before you say something, I think it's more concerning the fact that he just responded. It wasn't like
Yeah.
And Balaam was extremely surprised that the animal just spoke a full sentence to him.
Yeah.
He was like, yeah, I just wish I had a sword. He was ready for that.
Maybe it happened a lot.
That's what we don't know.
Your question, like, are animals' brains like that, reminds me of, like, in science, I think it was probably in biology, we saw, like, a staircase of, like, rocks and then plants and then animals and then humans. And each one has, like, more than the other one, right? Rocks have, like, literally nothing. Plants are, like, kind of alive, like, they have life in them. Animals are alive, and they also have instincts that they, like, react to survive. Or, like, I think it's phrased as like adaptation. They can adapt to survive. And then humans have that like rational thought that they can use. So I think animals, because they don't have rational thought, they're really just driven on like instinct. That kind of like what's the word? It starts with an R. Reminiscing of like their whole ownership under Balaam. I feel like that a donkey is not normally capable of that. So it has to be something inheriting the donkey is what I think I've come to.
Inhabiting.
That's what I meant to say. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Either like the Holy Spirit or the angel.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, no, that is interesting because I think there's like, I mean, even beyond stuff with animals, I'm trying to remember the Bible verse where Jesus is talking about something. I don't know, but he's like he says something that he's like, even the stones will cry out.
Oh yeah.
If
you silence them, it's
Something that
it's during the triumphal entry where all the people are praising his name. The Pharisees are talking to the disciples, and then Jesus overhears them and says, "Even if you silence them, the stones will cry out."
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, whether you take that literally or not, is interesting. Because I can see that being taken non-literally in terms of like.
What could that mean metaphorically then?
Metaphorically? Here's the thing. I'm not sure this is supposed to be taken metaphorically. But if one was inclined to, metaphorically, you could interpret it as like a general revelation type of thing. Like the heavens declare the glory of God. Do the heavens declare the glory of God verbally or not? Mm-hmm. Right? So I would maybe like liken those two verses as like the rocks crying out. That's the only thing I can think.
When I thought about it, I was thinking when he mentions that the rocks will cry out, that he was kind of using that as an over-exaggeration to kind of show them that things that you wouldn't think would might start speaking like Balaam's donkey. Which makes less sense,
yes.
But...
I'm not going to say... Yeah, I'm talking about the donkeys here, really.
Yeah, I'm talking mostly donkeys because it seems like they have a track record of talking.
Well, what about like the thing about the earth groaning?
The what?
The earth groaning. That happens a couple times, and I'm trying to remember where.
Yeah.
It says like creation groans or something.
I've always thought of like the earth groaning, and I feel like I've read this in like certain essays before, but like the signs of decay that we see in the earth is kind of the earth groaning under sin and just the sinful state of the world. And also you can look at like sometimes there's direct like natural consequences of human actions, where like humans have destroyed some habitat or destroyed some ecosystem, and then it kind of collapses because of that, or there's like repercussions. And that can also be like, I've seen people talk about that as like the earth groaning under like kind of the sin and mistakes of mankind, where like there's actually like implications from like physical implications from sin too. But maybe it is verbal, maybe the earth groans.
Because there's like, I just found this one verse in Romans. It's Romans 8:22. For we know that the whole creation has been groaning together in the pains of childbirth until now. Not only the creation, but we ourselves who have the first fruits of the Spirit groan inwardly as we wait eagerly for adoption as sons. So it could be metaphor. It could be like a legit thing. I do think it's interesting. I think it's important to note that, or like John 1. Like in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God. The Word was God. And then it says all things were made by Him. like, but also says like all things were made through him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And without him, nothing that was made would have been made.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what does it mean? Like, if something's made through God, does that mean more than something that is made by God?
Well, that's an interesting question, because if you think about the Trinity, and this kind of gets really complicated, but if you think about the Son of Man as the I'm losing the word, but as like the action, as the specific action taker of the Father,
The executive branch.
Not really.
Nice.
Not really. But like when we say he's the Word, creation was spoken into being. Right? So if you think about God the Father speaking words, and if you say that Jesus the Son was that word, it would make sense to say that creation was made through him, because he was like the Word of God.
Mm-hmm.
And God said, "Let there be light." And if his word, "Let there be light," was the capital W word, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm forgetting what the word is, but there is like a way to describe God, Jesus's or the Son's relationship to the Father as like the actual hand of God in the world in certain ways. But I don't know. Yeah, again.
Interesting. Yeah, we've really
Trinity.
hit the theology iceberg
Trinity
right
theology.
now. Yeah.
Going straight into the deep end.
Yeah. Starting off strong.
So we don't think animals are going to heaven.
No.
Is the bottom line.
I'd say no.
I don't
Okay.
think so.
Yeah, and
Animals in heaven,
Potentially.
Mm-hmm.
not going to heaven after they die.
True.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you have it.
Mm-hmm.
And I ran over the squirrel proudly.
Nice.
Okay.
Good,
We
yeah.
can also have respect for dead things.
I was gonna say.
Too. That does not mean that.
Where does our respect for dead things come from? I'm not.
That's a good
I
question.
have respect. I have
the
respect.
life they live.
I have respect for dead people. The squirrel's life was spent gathering nuts. Not much of a
it's
life.
creation though.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. For all creation.
Mhm.
For all things.
That's
Even
actually.
when it's dead, it's still creation.
That's a good
all
point.
creation.
You know what? That's a good
it's
point.
just not moving.
We shouldn't have. We should have respect for all parts of creation.
Sadly, I should like have a little more grace for mosquitoes, I guess. And I did burn like a bug over there, so maybe.
I was gonna say that was kind of low. But I mean, if they're part of the fall, you don't have to.
We don't know, but we don't know that. Though.
I know, but you don't. But regardless of whether they're part of the fall or not, you don't have to respect the parts of them that create like pain.
Yeah. So every single time you see a mosquito, break off its nose, and then you're following.
That's the only thing you don't have to respect.
Yes.
Right.
Okay, that was actually a good question. I didn't think it was
Yeah.
gonna go anywhere. I thought it was gonna be a whole lot of.
I thought it was
yapping,
like a
but-
yes or no question. Potentially.
Some new ones?
Mhm.
Do you have another question on there? Or?
How much? Yeah, wait. What time are we at right now?
We're at 14 minutes.
14? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Did you have any? I mean,
I feel like I'm looking at this. None of it is great. None of it makes us think super deeply.
Mm-hmm.
I have finals coming up. That'll make me think deeply about
What?
school and the things that I've learned.
well, there's a question. Why do you have finals after Christmas break?
Yeah.
Why was that ever?
Well,
I was
so
gonna say that's so stupid. I cannot imagine having it, but like after break.
it is annoying to kind of, because Christmas break, I can imagine, not having ever done this because I've gone to Veritas my whole life, but I can imagine that having finals before Christmas break, during Christmas break, you kind of just recycle all your knowledge. You just get out of there, right? You move it into the dumpster in the back of your brain,
Yeah.
and kind of move forward, get ready for the next semester.
Depends.
But it feels like the struggle for me is that I have to like be kind of conscious over Christmas break about like I got to remember all that stuff that I learned before Christmas break, because I got to write it all down on a piece of paper come
But then
the
what's
new
to
year.
stop you from recycling it after finals?
Oh, I do that. Yeah.
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 Well, so if you're a test-oriented student, and as soon as the test is over, you're recycling information.
Yes.
This system only prolongs that 3 weeks. It doesn't really cement it anymore. Is that what you're saying? It's just like a 3-week break under which you can't recycle it yet. You still have school.
Yes.
But after that, but the question is, why can't there be like a nice clean cut first semester and second semester? It might be week based. It might be like there's certain weeks and Christmas falls slightly before half.
And
then it's weird. Like you start school at a certain time. And, well, that's arbitrary. No.
Well, because I think the thing that like makes it work for us is that for college at least, Going August to I think August to December. I think I started August like 23rd or something.
Right.
And that went to December 15th, and that was 14 weeks of school. But
exactly.
Yeah, but then like with like some of the other days that were like taken off between Veterans Day, some other stuff, and Thanksgiving break, it came out to like, even though it was a 16-week period, it was 14 weeks. Same thing kind of happens again, except with December, basically half of December and half of January being taken out. That's just kind of void. And then you have spring break off, and then you have I don't know how much Easter stuff. I mean, you have like the entire week of Easter.
I think so.
That's actually crazy.
But it might be the private. Yeah, it might be the private school deal on the Easter.
Dude, I need that.
I mean, it makes sense. If college starts earlier and ends sooner in the spring semester, then it kind of seems like they've shifted their schedule, so it's even on both sides of Christmas in a way that maybe high school doesn't do.
Yeah.
But the question is, why does high school do it that way? Why don't they start like in August? I don't really know why school starts. You know, I've always said that school should be year round. So if we get into like
that is so that's ridiculous.
I stand by that.
If we get into like the logistics of education, then I want to screw the
So
whole system.
I think summer break mentality is just kind of the worst. Like I'm thinking about summer break for me right now. And I'll be honest, I'm not super looking forward to 3 months and nothing.
Really?
It kind of feels like that.
No.
Although I think it's for.
I wouldn't mind 3 months to work.
It's for people who want to work. I feel like that's a question. We would talk about this in French class because France does education differently, and I think they have a more like year-round schedule with more like regular 2-week breaks at different times.
I'm gonna look that up right now as you're talking.
Yeah, but we were talking about it, and I was trying to advocate in that French class. I was like, "This is revolutionary. Why don't we do it this way? This makes so much more sense. Regular breaks and year-round school education should be like a lifelong pursuit. It's not like a task that we should like be trying to escape."
Yeah.
It's like it should be the state of a youth is being educated constantly with enough healthy breaks. But Jack pointed out, like, then you wouldn't have that 3-month work period to get your paycheck.
Get your money up, yeah.
It's much harder if you're asking to get a 2-week break every 3 months, or a longer break. I feel like there's probably more break in the year than that.
Yeah. Wait, you said 2-week break every 3 months?
It's more often than that. I forget the exact time.
Yeah.
But it does make having a job harder. Like you can't, unless you're working alongside school, you can't like work on and off in those periods.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I think starting like the convention. I think the reason that our school starts like in September, I like it, but I think it's because the convention is at like June, July, and August. They just feel like summer months. And if you're gonna have a rough 3 months of summer, it's nicer to like have June, July, and August be those 3 months, and then like you start in September, at some point in September. And the issue is, I think there's probably just the curriculum. They're trying to get so much packed into our brains before our midterms that it just doesn't fit in before Christmas break. Because we have days off due to like Olympics. We have like choir things.
right.
We have a lot more. We have like conferences.
Yeah, starting in September doesn't finish by Christmas. I get that. I get that you can't finish in that amount of time. That makes sense. But then you also have to. It's interesting. So different states have different high school, like middle school, standardized start times too. Like I know. I don't know for sure, but I feel like I remember like Texas maybe started, or some like more rural areas starting it later so that kids can help like where there's a more like agricultural focus that they can like kind of finish the season before school starts. I'm not sure on that. I feel like I'm really on the edge of my knowledge right here speaking kind of from ignorance, but I think there's a later start time maybe for certain school districts in areas of the country where there's farming more.
I mean that would make sense.
I'm not sure.
One thing that is crazy though is that for Oregon schools, like first of all, they started like the 28th of September, which is crazy enough. But that means like people like Anna are gonna get out like mid-June.
All
In Oregon State schools.
Yeah.
Oh.
Like colleges.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that what state school is?
Yeah.
Okay. Tracking.
All good.
That is crazy. And it's more in line with the high school schedule. Yeah.
Yeah, but September 28th.
High school gets out around June.
September 28th. When I heard September 28th, I just think of like that's just like October 1st. Like they're like, you know, like it's so
Yeah.
they're not starting in September anymore because
True,
it's like the
that's-
last 2 days of September,
True. It's much later.
right?
That's true.
That is
That's a good
weird.
one. Yeah, I don't understand why that is. It'd be interesting to look into that. But it's like only Oregon State schools. I mean,
Or specifically Oregon. Maybe other states do that too, but at least Oregon doesn't.
yeah. Yeah, it'd be interesting to know why.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I can't imagine. Starting in August just made a lot more sense. Like
Yeah,
after I like went through that, because then I get out like first week of May.
which is so nice.
Super nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're at like 21 minutes.
We're at the threshold here, so yeah.
Okay.
David, you said you had a good transition. It's kind of
I did have a good
conversational.
transition.
Kind of
Okay.
into.
So the question is, what is art? And I have some follow up questions after that, but we've kind of talked about this a little bit before.
Yeah.
But I'd be interested to see what you have to say, James. And yeah, so what do you guys
For
think?
well, for context, before we get into your answer, our media for this episode is
True. We need
the
to
Studio
talk about
Ghibli.
Yeah. Ghibli.
Studio Ghibli movie.
sounds better, but I think it's actually Ghibli.
The
It's
new
a little
one-
heartbreaking for me.
The Boy and the Heron. It came out in theaters in Toronto. It was its first showing in America.
Toronto's
Some-
first showing of America.
Not Toronto. Not Toronto. That's not what I meant.
North America?
North America. That's what I meant. That's what I okay.
Boo.
I think it first was showed in North America in Toronto, at like
In America, in Toronto. Toronto is not in
America, North America.
Okay, say
Sorry,
that then.
North America. It's
In
first
America,
showing.
Toronto.
It's first showing
You did
in
not say that.
North America, so not just the
The
U.S.
continent.
In Toronto.
Yes,
At
yes.
I'm pretty sure some film festival in like September.
It's really not that important.
Okay.
Anyways, the movie came out in the summer in like Japan, but it came to American audiences December 8th. And this is just like Studio Ghibli's new movie. I don't know like if you guys know what Studio Ghibli is, but they made like they're like a Japanese animation studio. They done like Spirited Away, Ponyo,
My Neighbor Totoro.
yeah, stuff like that. You've probably seen like something related to it because they've been around for a while now. I wanna
Yeah.
say since like I think they've got founded in the 80s. Anyways, their newest movie was made by like the creator of the studio. Sometimes they switch around directors. So this is kind of like his. A lot of people are calling it his magnum opus. It's a movie that is like it's very unique because I think in like some interviews it said that like he wanted to make this movie like when he was running it by the producers and stuff. He's like, can I make a movie about myself? Which I thought was pretty interesting. And I'll get into that a little bit later. But yeah, so I think before we analyze art, let's talk about like what is art.
Yeah. Do you want to take a stab at that first?
What is art? Oh, you
I-
mentioned you guys talked about
I
that.
feel
No,
like
but
we
I wanna
might
hear
have
what
a
you
lot
have
of
to say.
Okay,
similar
I'm pretty sure.
thoughts.
Yeah,
We
exactly.
I
have
wasn't
talked
there.
about
Okay.
this.
What is art? I think art primarily, not all the time, but primarily is not I would differentiate it from a tool. Some religious art was made as a tool to like draw people closer to God, but I feel like in general art is more of like just a creative outpour of like someone's ideas or emotions and not made to complete some sort of task or objective.
This is like a non-functioning thing that people make.
I don't want to say it's useless, but it is somewhere. It's closer to that than like a hammer or a screwdriver.
Yeah, it's just not like utilitarian.
Yeah, so it's still made by man, right? I guess the earth is art in a way. Like God, like it's beautiful.
Yeah, we still like make art though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
art is made by man, but it's not made to do something. Is what I'd say. I don't know. I haven't
Not
thought
made
about
to
it
do
much.
something.
I wasn't ready for the question, so
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Oh yeah, what are your thoughts on that? I feel like he hit on some notes that we probably like. I think the first time we talked about this question, we definitely like rambled into areas we didn't have to. I feel like you did get to like the bread and butter of it. I'd say.
I'm not sure. It's a tough question, and I feel like every time I have a conversation about it, I kind of forget like later on.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure. The whole like doesn't serve a purpose thing feels like it's a little bit like it's accurate. It's close, but it's just not quite like the defining characteristic of art. Because I feel like an argument could be made that there's a lot of other things that aren't art that don't serve a purpose or aren't utilitarian. and one could argue that some art is utilitarian, or not utilitarian, but at least is made for a purpose. Like you were mentioning religious art, specifically being made for a purpose. Like, we'll make this painting so that you can like have it, and or like just like crosses that people would put up in their house, so that you would have a cross in the corner of the room, so you would always be reminded. Like that was very functional.
And there's also stuff like Napoleon had like multiple pieces of art commissioned to make himself look good. So like there's the famous one of like him up on the horse. The other one we talked about this in our history. I'm trying to remember what it was called. It's like the plague at I don't know, but it's like the one when like everyone in this one area was like sick, and it kind of made him look like this Christ figure as he was kind of like walking up.
Oh,
like,
right.
people.
That was one of his. Yeah, that was down south. I feel like.
Yeah.
Like Egypt or something like that.
Somewhere close to there. It was like Algeria.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll look it up later, but yeah, keep going.
Yeah. I don't know. Slide the question to you and keep thinking as you answer.
Okay. Yeah. So I would say Thomas touched on a good point. I think thinking about it as like non-functional, it's a very Western and like American way to look at it. I think.
What can I say? I love my country.
But yeah, I think it's important. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Because I think a lot of people in the West, we have a tendency to think of things in terms of usefulness and uselessness. I think some things can just be.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think with art, it can't just be, but it can also be like used for stuff. But I think it's like, like what Thomas said, its main function isn't, or its like inherent value isn't based on whether or not it can be like used or not. But I think I think what art is that it is something that is created within with I don't want to say with a creative mindset. Like
well, I'm starting to remember now. So first of all, there's a difference in the word art of like two things. So art can be a product, or in art can be something akin to a craft.
Right.
Like, this is the art of making something of which art is produced. And I think we've talked about like art being maybe different or similar to a craft in that it's something you can improve at doing.
Oh, yeah. I think art is intrinsically tied to beauty. I think that's another important thing to mention. Like there could be a beauty to like a lot of things. So that gets into some tough parts as far as like techniques go, because like I feel like things become, at least when it comes to art, things become more beautiful the more they get to like a certain completion. I think the end of every art is perfection.
So beauty might be in the nature definition, in the definition of art's nature, but maybe not as descriptive definition, because like beauty can be a lot of things. Like, because the reason like I want a broad categorization of art is like making pizza, I feel like is an art, or can be an art. That's the thing too. Is some tasks or some like arts can be done in a non-artistic way.
Yeah. No, okay, I'm thinking of something else now, but because then you can have art that like, what if the goal isn't to make something beautiful, but it is the goal to, like
that's what I was
thinking
of
like Goya's painting of Saturn eating his son.
Right. But then again, we're gonna ask what is beauty, because some people might describe that as beautiful.
True.
Like I started rereading the E.E. Cummings biography.
Yeah.
And he it's inserted with a lot of like notes from his journal, and I'm kind of remembering, and I've just started it, so it's kind of new, and I'm trying to remember exactly like his thought process about the world. But a lot of it is talking about like he was in World War I think it was, as an ambulance driver, and so a lot of his journal talks about like all the death and chaos he sees, but he keeps using like beautiful, like the word beauty to describe it, or the word wonder to describe it, and it's almost like he saw goodness and beauty and order within chaos. And like the realness of life. So maybe in like something like Goya's work, there's beauty in that he's capturing accurately an essence of humanity that is so real to the point that it's beautiful, just because of that. It's accurate depiction of reality.
So when it comes to, So there's this thing. I don't know like where it comes from. Like where did the Transcendentals come from? Like where did
I
you get
don't
that
know.
idea?
I actually am really curious. I thought I had read something recently about it, and I think it might have been like a quick wiki or a quick Google. But I think Aquinas kind of started talking about them for the first time as transcendentals and being like goodness, truth, and beauty exclusively and in one category. But before Aquinas, those things were often grouped together in a categorization, but they were never like called the transcendentals. And sometimes it was like goodness, truth, and some other like virtues or objects in there. So I think Aquinas is the first one to pin them down to those three things. But I'm not even sure he coined the term transcendental. I think it's kind of like that terminology has like a long history of kind of just happening and then through the classics and authors.
It'd be interesting to do more research into that. But like we're gonna be coming back to this a lot, so we'll like try to get like a better answer for you guys eventually. But
we'd love to hear thoughts from you too and 5-star reviews.
5-star reviews. Ask us a question and we'll answer it.
And yeah, maybe follow-up questions or like nuance to this specific question. Yeah, love to hear thoughts and other questions. But
totally. Yeah. Okay. So the Transcendentals, truth, goodness, and beauty. What are they? I think there's like these three core values of what, like reality, theology.
I think reality. I think they're like ways to describe like things that transcend, like that just God imbued in the world because of His character, and they just kind of transcend all other things.
Yeah, they're like
so they're just like
It's almost like the best way that we can kind of like categorize like God's character. Yeah. Like if we could create like if we could like like quote unquote put God in a bottle. If you're like cooking this up, like truth, goodness, and beauty would be like the intrinsic things. Since like God is true, God is good, God is beautiful. All the things that are like no, that actually isn't true either. Anyways, I think this is kind of I'm getting a little caught in the weeds because I'm a little confused on like what exactly they are myself. But yeah, we're gonna be like analyzing a lot of stuff in the future with that lens, and
that's a good thing to point out because that is a very common lens. I think, to view art.
Because thinking about art, I mean, it can represent all of those things, right? Art is obviously there's a lot of beautiful art. Art is also kind of a vessel of truth because, and I was thinking about it a little bit in my analysis of this, but I like to in any piece of art, I like to try to think about what was the artist feeling or thinking, and how do they put that truth about themselves into their artwork. And I think we can definitely see some of that in the film. And then goodness, I mean, art's good.
Yeah. And quickly before we maybe transition to the film, and either of you can start the talk on that because I have some questions but not a ton of answers.
Okay.
Going back to the Goya real fast, maybe what I was trying to grasp with the beauty thing in the Goya is if the Transcendentals, often they're talked about as being inseparable, which I'm not sure I fully have an opinion on. I'm not sure I'm committing to that truth that they are inseparable, but there is a lot of talk of like anything that's good is also true and beautiful somehow. So maybe in the fact that Goya shows that truth, there's beauty in that truth. So that's
which is interesting because then that
even though it's a very
What?
grotesque picture of like reality.
I haven't seen the picture, so.
Classic art history.
You haven't?
Oh my.
Well, I mean, maybe I don't know.
Oh,
maybe
man.
I'll look at it after the podcast.
Yeah, it's good, but yeah,
we could probably throw it on the.
Yeah.
Throw it on the.
We'll throw it on the screen right down here.
Nice. All right. Okay, yeah. I think, yeah, it's interesting. Like, we can move on to the movie, and just but I also think it's weird to think about, like if we're talking about like if there's a painting that's about sin, and it's true, and it's good because sin is being like shown in a certain light, is it therefore beautiful because of those two reasons?
Whoa.
Or if it's if its intrinsic value is to be something that's ugly.
Right. And then you have to think about maybe differentiating the art piece from the subject of the art piece. You know, like the vessel of truth and the truth that it's telling.
Like beautiful brushstrokes can still portray an ugly thing, right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. And sin in reality is anti-truth. right? Like there's something very.
And it's definitely not good.
So but showing sin that is real.
Yeah.
And it is maybe good and it's true, but those things themselves are not good and true. So in the same way, maybe showing it can be a beautiful like showing, but the thing you're showing is not necessarily by that.
Gotcha. Okay.
But yeah, Boy and the Heron.
The Boy and the Heron.
One more
well,
thing.
I can.
Okay.
It off. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Where to start? Well, what do you guys think of the movie? Rate it out of 10.
Why did that not come to mind as I was prepping?
I'd say it's a 8 unexpected storylines out of 10 unexpected storylines. That's my rating scale. That's my rating system.
Why don't you think about your objective 1 to 10 scale?
It's an 8 out of 10.
Okay.
I think I'm gonna give it. Okay, disclaimer: I have not watched, I think, enough Ghibli to get. If this is a consummate film of Miyazaki, I think that also hurts me because I don't have a lot of his other films in my brain. I'm giving it a 6 out of 10 because I'm a noob. I think if I were to watch more Ghibli and come back to this, I could easily see that being higher. But as a straight, like, this is my second Miyazaki Ghibli film. First one being Princess Mononoke. And also, it also hurt that I thought the movie was going in a certain direction because I don't watch Ghibli.
Yeah.
And then it went like, no, we're in a different reality now. That kind of threw me off to the point where I was kind of lost. Actually, I think 6 might be harsh, actually. I really thought it was funny and it was really beautiful. I might go 6.5, maybe 7. But I think I'm also just missing some of the context. That brings it to that higher echelon, you know?
That's part of the reason that I think I love the movie, and after doing research, I love it like a lot more. So if I put all of that stuff together, the full experience, I'd give that about like a 9 out of 10. But because it was hard. Okay, so Josie watched this. Josie's one of our friends. She watched this with her family the
Picture
other
right
day.
here.
No. No.
But yeah, she watched it with her family, and so her friend's brother and Rick liked the movie. Rick is another one of our friends. Picture right there. And the people that didn't like the movie didn't like it because they were confused.
Right.
And I think that's it. So that I think the fact that when you watch the movie, you can be like, oh, there's something more that I feel like I'm supposed to get, and that might take away from some of the experience. I think the music was good. Music 10 out of 10. Art 10 out of 10. Plot. I think if we're talking about plot, I would give the plot about a 6 out of 10.
6 out of 10.
Because I think it took, in order to like fully appreciate it, I needed some. Not only do you need like lore on Studio Ghibli and like Miyazaki in general, you need some lore. Like you have to, if you wanted to like really take in everything, you have to watch all of his other movies. Because one thing I'm gonna get into later is that there are a lot of callbacks.
See, that's tough.
The thing is,
tough.
Like, similar to Thomas, this is my first Ghibli film.
First.
Yeah, I'd never seen another Studio Ghibli film before this.
With
With a roller coaster of a film, and I think it's interesting. You were mentioning that some people like didn't like it as much because they were confused, and I gave it an 8 out of 10. I think it was mostly because like the art was great. Yeah, I didn't think like while I was watching it, I know it wasn't great of me, but I didn't think super deeply about it. Like reflecting on it like recently, like after I saw it, there is a lot to talk about. But when I was just watching it, like I liked the music, I liked the art, and the characters were kind of cool, and that was kind of like my baseline understanding, and that's what I based my rating off of.
Kind of from like an eye candy perspective, it's a very sweet film. It is because it's colorful. Yeah, there's good characters, and it's kind of fun and like lighthearted, so it kind of makes you. Yeah, I get that. That is a good quality. I feel like that might just be intrinsic to Ghibli films.
Maybe because I think that is a quality, but I feel like some movies did that quality better. Like watching My Neighbor Totoro, like that's like a classic kids movie. There's not like that much of a plot other than like these two girls hanging out with like this giant cat dude and all these other weird people, and like stuff's happening and it's fun. They're all goofing around. I wasn't watching that movie. I was like, what is it actually trying to say? Yeah. But I feel like because of certain elements, of the movie, it was leading me to think that there was more. Whereas when I was watching movies like Ponyo, even some stuff in Spirited Away, even though there could have been like deeper things like being talked about in the movie, I wasn't thinking about that. But when I watch movies like one movie that I want to try and watch tonight, The Wind Rises. That movie, not only did it have a clear plot, but also had like a clear theme. So it's kind of different to talk about that. Grave of the Fireflies, Howl's Moving Castle.
You're just listing Ghibli movies now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Literally.
All right.
Because I'm talking. That's like for my point.
Is it? Yeah. But so what your point is that other movies did that kind of art, kind of like not like.
Maybe that
they did the eye
candy.
candy. They did the eye candy stuff better.
Yeah.
And you're
no, I'm not saying they did the eye candy stuff better. They just made it so that I wasn't too worried about the plot.
Okay.
Kind of like what you were describing, maybe.
Oh.
As your experience.
Which might be because I haven't experienced those movies before, and I was
so
like,
maybe, So maybe it was just me trying to figure out, like, there's a lot of hype around this movie. Kind of wondering why. I probably would have had a different opinion on the movie had I been like 8 or something.
Wow.
I probably would have thought that movie was like amazing. I wasn't like if I wasn't even
like
thinking
you.
about it. Yeah.
I'm not okay. Great. Yeah.
I'm not 8, by the way, guys.
Just you know.
Yeah. But yeah, I, like, and that isn't to say that you were supposed to be thinking like super deep about it. I'm just saying, like, if I went in with the mindset that it was just going to be a movie, then I would not have thought about it so hard. But also, I don't know. It's tough.
So let's get to it. Like, what deep thoughts and analysis? Any themes?
Yeah. Okay.
Since you're first watching, you mentioned you had more thoughts about it. What are said thoughts?
My first shallow thought was that the art in the scene at the beginning, the fire scene, was incredible.
Oh yeah.
Which maybe because it was the first scene that I saw of the movie.
It was pretty good.
But it had this impression on me, and it was beautiful.
Running through
it was amazing.
That was a quality scene.
So that was really good. If I did like talk about like some of my favorite like visually pleasing scenes, I gotta go the delivery room scene.
Oh, with the paper?
Hard.
Yeah.
I didn't like that scene.
You didn't?
Really?
Because I was so freaking confused.
It was just so intense.
It made me really uncomfortable because I was like, what is happening? I was like, I'm so lost in the lore. And it kind of clarified it later. Like, I kind of picked up on things a little bit after that scene. But in that scene, that was like the climax for me of the movie, of my like ignorance.
Oh, I see.
So I think I might have lost some of like the cinematographic like values because I was just sitting there kind of like, this is the point in the movie where I feel like things should be clicking and nothing is clicking.
Yeah. It was confusing. I think I didn't think about it much, but like just thinking about it, like I think the deepest part of that scene was just that like he's not supposed to be in there, and that's why like all the papers like trying to get him out.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I don't know. There might be a deeper theme. She seemed angry at him for some reason, but regardless, my first deep thought, other than just the art and the fire, was that when Mahito he goes through the floor of the tower and he gets to the new world, right?
Right.
The first thing he sees is a graveyard. That's what the gates are going to in the stones. It's a graveyard. Right. It doesn't look like it, but
what are you talking about?
The first thing that he sees when he gets to the new world is a graveyard.
Like when he goes through
the gates.
Yeah.
The golden gates. That stone thing. Yes, when he goes to the floor.
When he gets to the gate,
that is a graveyard.
Was it a graveyard?
It's a tomb.
A tomb or a grave. Sorry, probably a tomb. That's probably the correct thing. It's a tomb. There's like, and that's what she defends him and draws that circle around them and to like keep off the dead or whatever.
Something like that.
And then a line later in the movie is Kiriko, the younger one, says, "This world is filled with the dead," and I just thought it was interesting that like the old man is trying to make realities out of his building blocks that are like good and pure, and like he doesn't use building blocks that have malice in them. Like they create the path, that they're walking on at the end, but he tries to use like the pure building blocks, and yet even though he's using the pure ones, his new world that he created is still filled with dead things. And then there's the imagery of Mahito seeing a tomb as his first like intro to the world. I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe you guys have thoughts on that.
At least like the Fisher lady, it seems like her whole house was built on like an old like ship.
Yeah, Kiriko.
Something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really wish I like remembered that. I've seen the movie twice now, and I like still like am forgetting some of this stuff.
Yeah, I mean it's a filler movie, so like it's kind of like she's built on something that's old and decrepit.
Yeah, and then there's all the souls that she has to like feed every day.
Right.
Yeah, wait, what are the Wada Wada again? I forgot.
They're they're souls that are being reanimated into
The new
Mahito's world.
Yeah, okay.
I think.
Okay, interesting.
I think so.
Yeah.
I assumed it was Mahito's. Now knowing that there's so many other worlds,
True.
I
Are there
don't
other
know if
worlds?
I
Are
think
there?
so because there's all those doors.
Well, I think
No.
She goes through a door and it's his
Oh,
world.
I
it's
thought
like-
those
it's like
were
in
all.
time.
I think
thought
it's
those were all
they call it
towers.
they call it the hallway of time. The corridor of time.
because she opened her own door
Yeah.
back into her world. Because remember,
That explains so much.
Yeah,
That's why they
yeah.
were going into different doors.
Yes.
But because she said this is your world. I'm pretty sure she said the line.
She said
but she
it, yeah,
might
she
have
did.
meant that's like your timeline.
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, she needs. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
See, that's
'cause-
like a Western word, like timeline,
Mhm.
maybe. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes more sense. The time. Okay. Okay.
yeah,
I like that.
yeah. There were a crazy. Okay, yeah. I didn't realize there's a lot of symbolism. Even after watching the video, I still have a lot of questions, like especially with Natsuko
Mm-hmm.
and stuff with some other people. But yeah, I don't know. Like, should I get into like what I gleaned? I'm kind of curious what
Yeah.
you gleaned.
Like I said, I have some questions, but not a lot of answers.
Okay. So
Do we
Yeah,
want?
maybe tell.
I have more thoughts that aren't really questions, but if we want to do questions, we can start on this.
that's true.
Well, I think I just am kind of wanting to reap what you guys gleaned.
Okay. Should I
To
finish?
mix metaphors.
I have
Yeah,
like
you can finish.
I have like one more thing. Okay.
Go for it.
The last thing, and I talked about this with my human letters teacher on New Year's Day, because she has also seen the movie and she's a huge Ghibli fan, is that at the end, when the old man gives Mahito the opportunity to become the new like creator of worlds,
Yeah.
he decides instead to live in his world that is broken, right? There's death and there's war and anger in his world, instead of deciding to create new, pure, like, just good worlds. And I'm wondering if that's because he's realized that even though there's death and war and anger, there is a sort of beauty that can only come from a place like that contains those things and can't be found in a place that is just truly good or like completely good.
What would you like? What kind of beauty are you talking about? Like, what does that have that a new pure world wouldn't have?
Like I said, I think Mahito got to that answer. I haven't gotten there yet, but
Okay.
but things like peace. Okay, so you know how there in science there's like some things that you only know that there's this thing because you've felt the opposite of it.
Yeah. it's
So
like a law of
you only
contrast.
know that there's peace when you've gone through war or strife, right? So I feel like the beauty of like enjoying a time of peace or a situation where you have peace can be more felt in Mahito's world, where there is war and there's anger and there's fights and whatnot.
Okay.
And I think that's beautiful.
Do you have a take on that?
Yeah, I would say that I think his reason for not wanting to stay was he just wanted to go back to his normal world. But I think a lot of the themes of the movie, just like in the plot, now that I'm thinking about it more, I'm gonna get into this a little later because I have my own thoughts, and then I have like what I got from the video that we will plug eventually, because there's no way I could not plug this man. He gave me so much knowledge. But there's a lot of themes of escapism with him wanting to go to the tower, with his mom dying.
Right.
He has a new mom.
Right.
His dad's like off working. One thing that I realized just after doing some more research is that the whole reason that he hit himself in the head with the rock was so that he didn't go to school. And so like not yeah.
Makes sense. I kind of interpret it as like a self-harm from like so much just like anguish. But I can see like the practical side to just trying to like get sick.
Isn't there a scene after he meets Kiriko where he talks about the reason for his scar, and then
said
she like shows hers, and I don't know.
Well, he admits to like, does he admit to Kiriko that he did it himself?
I don't remember
think
that. I thought he kind of avoided that question.
But he did admit it to someone later on in the movie. Was it Himi?
I don't remember.
I feel like I remember him and Kiriko showing each other their scars.
Yeah, they did.
They did.
Okay.
They did.
Didn't
but
he say a reason for his
I
scar?
think
Like
he
it's
gave
a.
a fake reason. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, okay.
I remember some like offhand comment.
He eventually showed, like when he was talking to someone about it, he was like, I gave this to myself.
Yeah.
I don't remember who he
But
said
I don't
it
think
to.
he ever explicitly says what it is. But I can get the escapism. Yeah, for sure. There's definitely like
Interesting.
the plot is there's lots of things like troubling him, and he's trying to, and it's kind of overwhelming him.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I get like kind of the escaping to the tower.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
I think one thing that I thought was super interesting, we realized this in the theater, is that on the gate going into the New World says Facemi la Divina Potestate, which is a line from Dante's Inferno, which is, it's actually on the gate as you go into hell. I was doing some more research on this morning, and so the line means I was created by divine power. And so
Is that on the tower, or like where is that?
Like you know the area where the lights open, like when you
Oh
first
yeah,
finds the room?
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so it's like it's before he goes into the castle. Where is okay? Yeah, so the full line from Dante's Inferno is, "Through me you pass into the doleful city. Through me you pass into eternal pain. Through me you pass among the forsaken people. Justice moved my high maker. I was wrought by divine power, supreme wisdom, and primal love. All that came before me was eternal, and I endure eternal. Abandon all hope, you who enter." So I think that there's some big Inferno similarities with this whole thing. Like it's kind of Mahito's journey going through like this whole area. And one thing that I was talking to Josie about this, and one thing that she brought up was that he descended first of all, and then he ascends up to the to where the old dude's hanging out.
Right.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And I think the Heron serves as like a sort of like Virgil character to him.
I can see that.
Yeah.
He's the one that brought him into the tower in the first place. Like his entire thing was that he wanted him to come into the tower.
Yeah.
And even though the Heron was like kind of had some of his own like things that he wanted, like he wasn't a perfect person.
He's a very contradictory person.
Mm-hmm. But they ended up working together in the end, where he wanted to help Mahito through the tower to get to this guy.
Yeah.
So I thought that was pretty interesting. I'm not sure if the similarities stop there, but that's like those are the main things that I thought of.
I feel like that can't be on accident. Yeah.
Totally,
yeah.
No, that's really cool. That's a good.
Well, also he ascends to go up to the old guy, but the Wada Wada, the little white things, are also ascending to get back into life. So
it's like an under.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So when it comes to the stuff with Miyazaki, like himself, the reason that I think that the true intention with the movie, based off like some of the stuff I've looked at, is that it was a movie about so Miyazaki Mahito is Miyazaki. The old guy is the creator who invited him onto Studio Ghibli that he co-founded it with. His name's like something Takahata, and then the Heron is one of he's like the producer that's been working with Studio Ghibli for like a while. And so I'll try to explain this as best I can, but Takahata was sort of like a not like a father figure, but he was a pretty close mentor to him in like the animation business, and he died mid-production of The Boy and the Heron, and they changed some of the movie around after he had died. And so the whole thing with them at the tower. Oh, also with the producer being the Heron, the reason that he's so kind of like kind of contradictory in the beginning, and then he near the end he kind of joins Mahito and like helps him out, is kind of like the same journey that the producer took at first. Like at first the producer was kind of like a little skeptical of like all the stuff that was going on. He wasn't like a huge friend to Miyazaki, but then later on as they went through the business together, they ended up becoming kind of more friendly and actually like working together. Even though Miyazaki still relied on the Heron to like get him Miyazaki still relied on the producer to get him places,
right?
Because that's just like how this is how business works. And so once they finally got to the top, and he's talking to the old guy, and there's like the whole thing. I'm trying to remember. Do you remember the where in the movie there's a line? There's like, "I have traveled across time and space to bring you these 13 stones." Was that in the flashback, or was that something that?
Isn't that at the end when he like takes them out?
Is that when?
I don't know. That's
don't
the
know.
only time I remember them talking about the 13 stones
Right.
that don't have malice yet.
But he got the stones. Did he get the stone, or didn't he get the stones from like the dude who brought him to the castle? Because like the castle came from. Okay,
I don't think so.
interesting. Okay, anyways, so the 13 stones represent the 13 Miyazaki movies. Like there are 12 that Studio Ghibli actually like took part in, and then the first one is something that I think just Miyazaki worked on. It's called I'm blanking. It's like Future Boy Conan. I've never seen it. But yeah. So that's what the 13 stones represent. And so that's why like after like the old guy was like, yeah, I can't be here forever. I'm looking for a successor. And so that's why he was coming to Mahito, which would be Miyazaki to like take over. But then Miyazaki doesn't want to kind of like continue like just in this world and like kind of just take up the mantle of like this world. I think he wants to do something kind of more on his own. So he wants to like still create, but he's not going to do it, or he just didn't want to do it in this world. I think for like a lot of other reasons.
Yeah.
There's like a huge. Oh, sorry. You can ask your question first.
I'm kind of like thinking about this, and this is all kind of like, because there's kind of a question for me, like when it comes to art, there's definitely an element where art can be like analogous to certain things, like where you use symbolism in your art to add meaning to it, but it also has like meaning that, because it feels like this movie is probably, and is allegedly, like according to Miyazaki, very personal to him. But also at the same time, I feel like as an artist, I can see him adding personal elements, but kind of like, I'm not sure, like, and again, I'm not sure I have like the best expertise to talk about this as a not a huge like Ghibli like watcher, but it feels like if I was trying to create a piece of art that I wanted to be representatory of something about that was deeply personal to myself, I wouldn't make it as complete, like this is literally like my story in analogies, as much as I would kind of like maybe insert meaningful, like 13 lines up with 13, that seems like meaningful, like that's something he inserted, like that's a decision in the production. How many stones is there going to be? And Miyazaki has an idea because he wants this to represent certain things. But at the same time, like, I'm wondering, because the stones was to represent, do you want to create your own world? Like, the old man was saying, hey, you can make your own, like I did, and now it's falling apart. You can take these stones and make your own thing. And it feels like if the 13 stones represented the films, and he said no to the stones, then it doesn't feel like a complete it feels like if Miyazaki is supposed to completely be represented by the boy, like saying no to the stones as movies feels like not really, you know what I'm saying? Like it feels like the analogy, if it's a complete analogy, it feels like it breaks down in some points, but if it's more of like a story with a certain theme that he's trying to use, and he's inserting like things from his own life into it.
I think it's
like I feel like it's more in that.
I think it's like a looser analogy, and it's more like connection based. So if he's like thinking like, if I want Mahito to represent me, you need a number, right? You're talking about the stones. He needs a number. Okay, what have I done that is like a number, and that would make sense, right? Oh, I made 13 movies. Let's do 13 blocks, right?
Yeah.
I don't think him like rejecting the stones, and it might. I mean, your video guy might have talked about it a bunch, but like him rejecting it might not be part of the analogy. That just might be part of the story. But he got to the number of blocks by using his kind of like.
Well, yeah. So yeah, to kind of like get further into that, yeah, I think there's definitely more. There's more with like the actual purpose of him rejecting the blocks and stuff. But before I get into like, because what he did was super interesting. He like gave the analysis based on what he thought Miyazaki was going for, and then he gave an analysis based on what he gleaned from the movie and what what made him like it. Because he brings up this quote from someone who talks about metaphors and how art becomes like degraded if you kind of like bring it down to just like a single metaphor. Like if you say like, oh yeah, it represents like this one thing,
right?
Then it leaves it up to one interpretation.
Yeah,
it can't like be like in its full, like it can't be itself fully.
Right.
So he brings in two different interpretations, which I thought was interesting. So another thing,
which interpretation do you feel like you have or ascribe to more, or like how do you?
His second one I really like.
Which is more.
I'll get into it in a sec, but like before I fit, like there's just a little bit more symbolism.
Okay.
Which like stuff that's really cool with it. There's like this theme of consumption throughout the thing. So the whole world is supposed to be like this. It's supposed to represent the world of Ghibli movies. So there's this one house that looks like a house from Howl's Moving Castle that I remember now. There's a house that looks like one from My Neighbor Totoro. The whole scene of them walking into or getting to the castle, a lot of them are like pretty close to shot for shot remakes of like this one scene of a girl in My Neighbor Totoro following Totoro through like this whole like bushy area. And there are a couple other references and stuff, but within that there are the like 3 different classes, or like I don't want to say classes, but like groups of like people that are like eating stuff. So you have like you have just like the humans in general. So you have like Himi, you have Kiriko, you have Mahito. They're just kind of like eating stuff for food. I honestly am forgetting a lot of what their symbolism was, but it was less important as the pelicans and the parakeets.
Mm-hmm.
So with the parakeets, their whole thing with consumption is that they're just eating like it's more of like a gluttony thing.
Right.
So they're taking the things produced by the world and they're just kind of eating it, and they're not like appreciating it as much. And then there's the thing with the pelicans who like they feel like they have no choice but to take it in.
Right.
And I guess I can't get into that as much, but I guess the Parakeet King is supposed to represent the art distributors of the world. So the people that are like trying to sell like Ghibli movies,
like very utilitarian approach to art,
which is
like
why
very consumption based. Yeah.
Which is why he's like, someone has to take up the world. He tried to build it himself. He got pissed. He broke it.
Right. In violent, like his answer was violence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Bring the stick. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Not the carrot.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
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 And then I'm trying to remember some more. I have a lot of questions, like I said earlier, about like Natsuko. But so his interpretation, which is the one I feel like I ascribe to more, is that we are Mahito. Miyazaki is the old guy. And I'm not sure who the Heron is, but that kind of changes the ending of the movie, making it so that Miyazaki, instead of choosing to like if he's probably looking for a successor right now. I know he has been looking for a successor. He's retired 3 times. Right. Hasn't found anyone yet. And so in the midst of that, he's just trying to like hand it off to someone. And if we're Mahito, one of the like things that he tells us, he tells Mahito at the end, is to create without malice. Mm-hmm. And so he's like, yeah, maybe you can kind of create a better world than I can. So I think it kind of makes the ending of the movie more of talking to all like artists in a sense, and just all people who are like trying to create stuff. Mm-hmm. That like his legacy is just telling people to create without malice.
Right.
And to just kind of like go back to our own worlds, not get stuck in this, but like you can just like go out and kind of
which is interesting, because it seems like the Mahito says that like he points to his scar and says like, but I have malice. That's what he answers. Mm-hmm. And so it's kind of like, it feels like the message of the film for me was kind of like an acceptance of chaos and an acceptance of malice and pain, which is why I thought it was interesting, James, you brought up there's beauty in brokenness that makes it more appealing than perfection. Mm-hmm. That's kind of where you were going. And I was thinking, maybe on a related vein, my takeaway from the movie was the reality of life is chaos and pain. There, like, perfection isn't possible, and it's like an acceptance of that reality. Seemed like what it was. Mahito, you were talking about like his escapism in the beginning, and then in the end, he kind of returns to that. He kind of actually embraces life. Like, he's no longer trying to run away. He's finally given this token to like escape fully, to make his own reality that's perfect, to escape, like, you know, all the things, like the boys, the loss of his mom, all those sort of things, and he rejects that, and instead just assumes his old life and chooses that over a new reality. So it feels like the message of the film is kind of like an acceptance of evil, or an acceptance of malice, or in chaos as just being a part of life. Right? Because I say like the create without malice thing, but just the fact that he like kind of rejects that and says like, but I have malice, so like what do I do?
Yeah, because there are a lot of elements of the whole thing with the castle kind of coming from space. I think has something to. I think the whole point of that is that he feels like when it comes to his ideas, it's just stuff that's like basically it may as well have just come from the stars. Like it's just stuff that he came up with, and like ideas that he was just bestowed with. So I think that's kind of a part of like the weird cosmic stuff. Yeah. Like with all of that, and just all the whimsical elements of the other stuff, and especially with Mahito like being connected with his mom when she was a kid, and how this place is kind of like a place outside of time, which kind of makes the movies kind of like places outside of time that people from all different times can kind of like almost like reach out to each other and like enjoy. So yeah, I think it needs a little bit of both, but it can't have fully one or the other.
Both what?
Both ideas. So like the idea of like Miyazaki and like trying to create movies and stuff, but also us as the artists and like the message to us.
Right, and the fact that he's making a movie means that like whatever the theme of the movie is, it makes sense that it's like him telling us something. Like it could, like, because what I'm thinking, I'm kind of going out here on a limb, but it could be if we're going into like maybe the analogy, the old man and Mahito could both. And I forget what the old man's name is, but they could both represent Miyazaki in the sense that like Miyazaki is a creator who has these 12 stones or however many movies he's made. He's looking at a successor, but he's also lived a lot of life, and maybe some things are crumbling that he thought he set up perfectly. Maybe he thought he could create movies and create a life that was perfect. And it kind of makes sense that I don't know a ton about Miyazaki, but it kind of makes sense as you're older and maybe you're ending, like you're looking at the end of a career or some run, kind of like it makes sense that he would have some realization at this point that like life has chaos and life has evil, and maybe it's like his two selves kind of looking at each other, like the self that's finished the career and is maybe looking for successor, and him also answering that as like, yeah, I finally, like as the Mahito does in the end, yeah, I've accepted this reality that like there's pain, there's death, there's all this in life, and I've accepted that, and I'm not going to try and escape anymore, make movies, make realities, you know, that are perfect and pretend. I'm not going to pretend anymore. I'm going to accept that life is good, but it also like has all these things that might be, you know, not as pretty.
Yeah. And when I think about the movie with that lens, I'm like, oh yeah, that was a great movie. Like I give that like a 9 out of 10. But I think because I don't know, do you think as far as the second interpretation goes, I don't think you need that much like Miyazaki lore to know, like you kind of
that's kind of what I'm thinking about too, is because there's all this Miyazaki lore that I'm sure is accurate in the way that it's represented in the film, but I also feel like at the same time I'm sure he made a movie that just has themes and depicts a story that kind of has like just maybe lessons just in the characters that like maybe they do reflect himself in a way that he wanted to make it really personal and to show that it's something he's lived and maybe learned in his life. But I think also like the interpreting it as an acceptance of death, an acceptance of loss. You don't need the lore necessarily to do that. You can just look at the way Mahito like encounters so much, and I didn't think about his escapism. I feel like that helps. Like looking at the beginning and just the way he's trying to run away, and at the end he runs the other way. Like he's running through this reality away from this opportunity to escape. I think that brings a lot of depth.
I'm thinking about the second interpretation where we're Mahito and he's the old man, right? Or Miyazaki's the old man, right? And you explained the King Parakeet's role breaking the table in the first analogy, but like in the second one, do you know what the king parakeet is supposed to represent when he tries to build the tower and gives up and breaks it?
I would say that's still. I think there's some stuff in the first analogy that still carries over. I'd still say that that's like the executive just trying to produce like stuff. So he just kind of put it together haphazardly, got mad at it, broke it. The entire world is falling apart.
And more broadly, anyone who's consumption focused in their last ditch attempt to create perfection when things are crumbling, scramble and cling to strings, trying to pull things together. So I think there's like an interesting way that it shows like things in his personal life, but also can apply. Maybe it can just teach us about like people in general. Who are consumption focused. Or they try to,
It could also be that like if Mahito comes to this realization that even if he tries to make something that is perfect, he still has malice. I think at some point that might be trying to teach us that anything that we make, no matter how hard we try to make it like perfectly good, because we're flawed in so many different ways, that anything we make will have malice in it. If that the king parakeet could represent people that think that they can make perfect things that they just don't work out right. He thinks that he can make this new tower out of malice-free building blocks, and it'll just be fine, right? But it doesn't, and then that leads to his anger, right? So the message is that we can't build anything that is truly perfect.
Yeah, maybe the possibility of it. Ooh, because the old man structure is failing too.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about like the end of the movie, like after like the conversation he has with the Heron? Like that was an interesting exchange because it was almost like it was in both of their heads, and he came out of the thing with the block and the figure of Kiriko who eventually like came back. Oh, also like the figures, how all the ladies are people from the other world. I thought was also interesting.
And
that was really weird.
I wish I remembered the line that he said like at the end with because when he was talking about Mahito, he was like, you're gonna forget all of this.
Yeah,
you know what's
that's crazy too. Like you're not supposed to have this. It's better if you don't remember this. That is hard to take away a lesson. Like I kind of understood it in the context because I thought about his mom and the way she went through all this. And I was thinking about like maybe this journey in this lore, like in this movie lore, is something you're not supposed to remember.
Yeah.
It's something you go through and shapes you, but then you kind of forget,
And that, what's interesting is that if they're supposed to forget it, there might be something that like there probably is some sort of connection with the fact that his mom died in a fire and that in the world she has like control over fire, and like maybe her punishment for not forgetting the world was to die by fire. This is total speculation.
You don't know that in the movie it says she didn't remember.
Oh
in the
yeah,
movie,
right, yeah.
She was telling one of the old ladies was telling the story and said she was just walking back in the field years later. It looked like she didn't change. She didn't have any memory.
Oh, actually,
So
that's a good point.
that.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Forgot about that.
And there's also like another point that the guy made in the video is that he thinks that the fire kind of represents passion, in a sense. I think. Because there's like fire is a very important thing because there's Himi with the fire, there's Kiriko with the fire when she shoot away the pelicans, and also when she drew the circle and they walk backwards.
Right.
Fire cooks the fish.
The weird being in the sky looks like it's like.
Oh, the rock.
Looks like it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it has like veins of like red, which could be like lava. It looks like lava.
What bean are we talking about?
The
rock
floating
was
bean
floating
when the old guy and he's like, look, he like brings Mahito to the bean.
Because that was the stone in the entire movie that was like hey, the stone doesn't want us here.
Yeah.
Which I thought was also interesting. Like
very strange.
The whole thing of I think the whole thing with the delivery room was also another thing that I realized. The reason why Natsuko, Himi and Mahito were like super important was that they were all of this guy's bloodline. Technically, Natsuko was carrying the kid of the guy who had the bloodline. Himi was of the bloodline. Mahito was of the bloodline.
Right.
Mahito just like had kind of like the most like ambition for it, which is why the old guy was like, I want Mahito for this.
Yeah.
But they were all kind of brought to it at the same time. Still not sure about Natsuko and like why at first she didn't want it, because like she kind of snapped out of it once he called her mother. I do remember at first she was like, oh, Mahito? Like at first she was kind of like dazed and was like, oh, you can't be here.
Yeah.
All this stuff was really interesting.
And
I just like that scene, or whenever he called her mother, because it kind of showed just like his acceptance,
mm-hmm.
which is just which I feel like it was a big theme in the movie. It's just him accepting things.
Mm-hmm. We glazed past it, but you mentioned that you don't know why the old ladies were like the little minifigures in Kiriko's home, and I thought it was interesting at the end. His Kiriko minifigure turns into actual Kiriko.
Yeah, because Kiriko
went in with him, right? So the figures in younger Kiriko's home, I think at the beginning when Mahito first comes to the house, Natsuko explains that these old ladies are there to kind of watch over him and take care of him, and maybe when he goes to the world through the tower floor and Kiriko's there with him and going in with him, the old ladies at least a part of them might come with him into the world, and they get turned, and all the old people get turned into the little minifigures. But then there's the younger Kiriko that actually is alive, and that when Kiriko the minifigure turns back into old Kiriko, all the other old does that make sense at all?
No, I'll be honest.
I was thinking maybe in different timelines, at different points in time, the old ladies go missing, and at that time where he's in whoever's house that is, the fisher lady, Kiriko, when he's in Kiriko's house, they're all statues, but then at some point they all come back into reality. Maybe when she returns into her timeline.
You think they all visit at different times?
Somehow Kiriko goes missing in his world.
Yeah.
And shows up, and for all intents and purposes, is that minifigure that he sees, because when he brings it back, she turns back up. I just don't know how all the other ones are there at the same time as the ones.
And then
I don't know.
They're gone.
At any rate, they represent some level of protection. I'd be curious for a Miyazaki stan if they had some direct personal meaning why there's so many of them, and maybe they just represent. I could see them just representing different people in his life. Maybe just elderly folk in general who've cared for him, because they're kind of they seem to just represent older people and the way older people act.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember when there was one of the old ladies that was talking to Mahito outside of the door that one time. I forgot what the scene was, but she said something that I thought was kind of significant, but I'm blanking on what it was.
Yeah.
But there's also going in and out of the doors, how it only how it affects certain people. When it came to the parakeets, they were these big dudes in the thing, and when they came back, they're just birds. Yeah. The pelicans had their intelligence, and then they didn't, but they looked virtually the same.
It kind of just earthified them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whatever they were, or whatever whatever their reality was in the other world was just shifted into whatever reality they had in here.
And maybe it just makes certain things just super fantastical.
Maybe, yeah.
But that doesn't happen. I mean, for some reason, it makes Kiriko this
statue. Yeah.
Well, it makes.
Or no, sorry, Kiriko.
Yeah, Kiriko's the only one who doesn't become a statue, which isn't. Well, no, she was a statue. Wait, when did she become a statue?
You never see her.
The floor.
No, but
Kiriko, the young one, gives him the Kiriko statue when he leaves with the Heron.
Oh,
she's
right.
not. She's not in the collection, but she's the special.
She goes to the floor, and then she's nowhere to be seen.
She's the shiny Pokemon kind of thing. But
what? No.
She's rare. And it doesn't matter.
No,
never mind.
Horrible analogy.
Some people got that.
No, I play Pokemon games. That didn't make any sense.
You know, if you played enough Pokemon games, you would get it.
What Pokemon games do you play?
Yeah.
Pokemon Go?
Pokemon Go?
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Ain't no way. Just exposed himself on stream. Anyways. But yeah, I think that is...
I was just thinking about it. The world collapses, right?
Mm-hmm. Right. The castle itself collapses, too.
Yeah. If that world was where souls go potentially after death, but also souls the Wada Wada before they're born, what is the system of reincarnation, or what is the system of the afterlife if that world collapses?
That's the thing. I'm not sure our idea of our direct connection with Inferno maybe is correct, because that is a different world that he has built. That old man has built.
Yeah.
And it seems different than Earth.
Okay.
So I feel like it doesn't have a direct lore connection where
I'm not talking about the Inferno connection. I'm talking about when Kiriko tells Mahito that those Wada Wada are souls going
I'm not sure those souls go to Earth.
Oh.
We don't even know that. They go
Kiriko
up.
mentions that might go into his world.
I think, but there's something to be said. I think, like, even though, like, just specifically why the line "I was created by divine power" was on the gate specifically, as opposed to "Abandon all hope, ye who enter here," is also interesting.
Yeah, true.
So
that's
like
the classic line to use from that line in the Inferno is "Abandon all hope."
Yeah, but by saying that, I was made by divine power. It's interesting because like the thing just kind of came from space, just kind of crashed down, and I swear there was a guy who gave him the stones. That was like gave the old man the stones. As like, I've traveled across time and space to give you these 13 stones. But I could be wrong. But I do know it was a line because the guy in the movie, the guy who watched the video mentions that like that was a line that happened, and for some reason he was like a film student, so I understands why he got the movie like pretty quickly. But he was talking about like that line made him like start to tear up for some reason. But yeah, I'd have to watch the movie again, for a third time.
Yeah.
Because it was just a trip.
It was a trip. There's a lot in there. It's a very thoughtful movie.
I would definitely recommend it.
Absolutely.
I think it's family friendly as well. I would say.
Beautiful. Even like the symbolism I feel like gives it depth, but it was good the first time I watched it.
Yeah.
Honestly. And the more I've thought about it, it's only gotten better. So it's just like it has that depth, but you don't need that depth to appreciate it just because it's a Ghibli, it's beautiful ones.
Well, it's about time we wrap up.
Probably, yeah.
Right. As a reminder, for next time, we will try to keep them really inside of their 20-minute spheres. But if you do have questions you want answered, leave them in the form of a 5-star review.
Yes, we want questions.
Yes.
They can be on anything. They can be deep. They can be
shallow.
Whatever.
What should I have for breakfast?
Really care.
We have many thoughts on that.
Just
So
leave them in form of a 5-star review. We're gonna try to figure that out. You can do that on Apple Podcasts. Not possible on Spotify, but there will be a.
Man, that's rough.
Yeah, there will be a video podcast available. Most likely, if we can do that. So maybe.
Kind of like YouTube.
Maybe.
on YouTube.
Maybe a comment on that because you can't leave reviews.
Put 5 stars in the comments.
yes, 5-star emojis, and we will answer your questions.
Exactly. Yeah, that'll work.
Or they can just like and subscribe. That might be easier.
Okay.
True.
Yeah. We'll check if you.
Yeah, and hit the bell as well.
So, hit that bell. Okay.
All right.
Is that it?
Yeah,
Thank you for
that's
watching.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, thank
See
you.
you guys later.